Hi, my name is John. Welcome to Consumer Talk. Today I'd like to discuss a third-party service called Teleport. It comes from Slant3D and the product that they created called Teleport. And to kind of quickly cover what this concept is they've created 3D print farms across the United States, several of them. And the idea behind it is when you sell a product on like Etsy or eBay or something, your file gets sent to the appropriate location that is closest to the customer. It gets printed and then it gets shipped to that customer. And the idea behind it is it saves you money in shipping costs. And the added bonus is that you have this third party printing the parts for you instead of you doing it yourself, freeing up your time. Okay. So this is an interesting concept, and it may or may not apply to all of us. I know they've created videos kind of throwing out a wide net, wanting to be something that helps everybody no matter their situation. And I'm kind of wondering how big that net really is. So let's discuss this and talk about the different aspects and see if it is a fit for you. Okay? Um, the first thing that I'd like to bring up is 3D printers themselves. I've been 3D printing. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I've been 3D printing for a really long time. And I've had 3D printers in-house for over a decade now. And I've gone through several different kinds of 3D printers. Um, and what I have found is that in the last couple of years, um, the types of 3D printers that are being sold now have become so simple to use. Not just the printer itself, but the software to support it. All of these elements behind that 3D printer have just absolutely become just simple. It takes little to no skill to be able to run a modern 3D printer. So it kind of begs the question that if they become so simple and so low cost and so easy to obtain, is it worth using a third party service like Teleport to print your parts? Well, if you're developing a product, right off the bat, you have to have a 3D printer so that you can, at a minimum, print your prototypes, kind of refine your design. But thinking beyond that, do you need a third party to print your parts? Because I know often with my printers back here, I'll load up the print surface with 3, 4, 10 parts depending on the size of the parts, and I'll start the print at 10 o'clock at night, and the parts are done in the morning. So it's not like it's taking away that much of my time, right? But you need to decide this for yourself. Um, I'm kind of in the camp that the printers have become so easy to use, so easy to add more printers to create your own small farm that for a lot of us it may not be worthwhile. But Slant 3D and Teleport, they're kind of promoting the idea. Like I saw in one video, they were saying, if you're the kid in the dorm room who wants to become rich on some product you've created, you don't have to print it yourself. And I can't speak with certainty to that. Uh, that kid probably has access to 3D printers, maybe in his dorm room or with other friends or with relatives within his school. So there might be a path for him to still print his stuff. But I don't know, But I think for a lot of people selling stuff on Etsy or on eBay and things like that, being able to print the stuff yourself might make a lot of sense. You have a lot of control over quality and all those other issues. Um, the other thing I'd like to mention is free print files. So there seems, it's so simple to get your hands on a 3D printer now, and it's a no-brainer to run the thing. That then you make the next mental leap. That is, well, I'll just go to Printables or Thingiverse or some of these other websites, and for free or virtually no cost at all, I can get these pre-made designs, and I can print them myself and then list them on Etsy and then sell them, right? This is just my opinion, but that's created some problems for this industry of makers. In that, they've started to crack down on in Etsy, and I'm glad for that. But you go to somewhere like Etsy, and if you were typing in something like flexible dragon, you would get pages of flexible dragons, all the exact same design. The only difference is the color of material they're printing it from and price. And what this did was it created this race to the bottom on price to where probably most everybody isn't making any money off these prints. And if you're using a 3D service that's going to charge you a premium to print it for you, that's even more loss from your profit margin. So in my mind, Teleport doesn't fit all these circumstances. I am glad that Etsy is cutting down on this. You see far fewer of these, multiple listings for the exact same product. And I think that's the future, in that it's not going to take much longer for average folks to realize that they can buy a basic printer from a place like Bamboo for like $250. They can set it up right next to their inkjet or their laser printer or whatever and use it occasionally like they do their other printers. And when they see something they like, they download it for free and print it. And I think this is going to become more and more common, to where we're going to see less and less of these singularly printed items or print in place items on places like Etsy and eBay. Because folks will have their own printer and they can download the same exact file and print it for themselves and don't have to pay any premiums to anybody. And they can print extra ones for friends and relatives and that kind of thing, right? So I think that market is going to continue to shrink. And what it's going to be replaced with are multi-part products, right? So for a few years now, there's been this real push by all kinds of makers to make a singular print that has all the features built into it, because a 3D printer is kind of it's a strong suit for it. And for a good example is with Slant. They had a video a while back where they redesigned a measuring cup to optimize it for printing as a singular item in one single print. Now, the product itself is not very viable. I doubt if that'll ever be something that gets sold. But it was a good demonstration of how you can make a singular item printed in a printer that has features almost on every side. And that there's some utility in that. But I think what's going to happen is people are going to start to realize that they can print multiple 3D parts in their optimum positions on the 3D printer and then bring them together in an assembly with like snap fits or adhesives and things like that, fasteners, things like that. And I think that's going to become the future. Because you can build more utility into your designs. You can make them more attractive. They can make them more useful, and you can make them more solid. You can do a lot more when you let go of this idea of having to print everything as one part. Okay, and I think that's the future. But along with that, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up using a lot of other things with those 3D printed parts, meaning like OEM parts. So you're going to be using screws and washers and nuts and pins and springs and things like that. Heat insert nuts, things like that. And that creates a couple of wrinkles for using a service like Teleport. For example, not only will you be paying a premium to Teleport for printing your parts, but you'll also be paying them a premium for doing all this assembly work. And it won't be in-house, so you won't have good control over quality. But maybe it works for your particular design. Along with that, you're going to be paying a premium because you have to supply all these OEM parts and custom machine parts that make up your assembly. So you have to create a group of these parts that you ship to each one of the satellite locations of Teleport. Now, if you have the overhead in your little company to do that, then great. I think for a lot of us, that's an added expense that we really don't want to carry because, this particular satellite 3D print farm might sell more of the item than this other one because of customer location. Well, you still have a bunch of parts, in one location, but not in the other one, but you got to keep feeding the other one new parts. Well, these parts sit idle. And so it creates a logistical thing that you have to think through. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible or not worthwhile, but I think it's a point that we need to bring up as makers and sellers of products. Okay. And I think the only way that most of us will be able to overcome these limitations in premium costs of printing, shipping supplies, shipping costs, assembly, and parts to be sent out. The only way we can overcome all these additional costs is through volume, because you just can't build all of that into your profit margin. You're going to have to make up for that loss in profit through volume. So, if you're in the, a few thousand of these things being sold per month, a service like Teleport, might start to make sense. But I think for most of us that are selling a few dozen or, even 100 every month, we can probably keep up with that with our own labor and our ability to buy a couple extra printers and run them. It's just become so simple to do. So you need to decide. The idea behind this little video is for us to kind of bring up the points to help you think through the process. Okay. The last thing that I'd like to bring up is intellectual property. Now, I've noticed with Teleport, they've had a couple of videos about protecting your intellectual property, right? That your files are safe with them, and they put in a system with rules so that they're not keeping your data and this kind of stuff. And I appreciate that. I think we all would. But here's the problem I'm having with that is we're watching what's happening with a company like 23andMe. And they had all the same kinds of assurances that your your DNA data is safe with them. And now that they're looking to be acquired, suddenly your DNA data has become part of their assets, and it's created a fight. And we're just pawns in this game, each of us having our singular data point, and we don't have much say in what's going to happen here. Now, with regard to like Teleport, if you're downloading free files and you lose control of them, you probably don't care much, right? You got them for free. It doesn't matter to you. But for someone like me who conceives his own ideas, designs them in CAD, and then refines them through a long process of refinement to improve their manufacturability and their usability and stuff like that, you kind of want to hang on to your intellectual property, and you don't want to lose control of it. And that point, more than anything else that I brought up, really makes me balk at the idea of using a service like Teleport. Now, it might not matter to you. You have to decide for yourself. I think the main point that I'm bringing up is that this wide net that Teleport casts in their videos really isn't as wide as they'd like us to believe. I think the use of their service has its place, but it's not for every single product, for every single business plan or product. So we need to think these points through before we just throw our hat in that ring. So that's it today. That's what I wanted to talk about, was Slant3D's product of Teleport and how it may or may not fit for you, and to get us to think more deeply about what is the pros and cons of using that service. So until next time, thank you so much for watching, and take care. Bye now.